Okay, with that said, we're going to move on to fiscal year 2021 pavement overlay. Item number 4.
Yes. Good evening again. This is Hossein Ajidi, Engineering Manager. I'm here with Imad Elias, Associate Engineer, and we will be presenting on fiscal year 2021 payment overlay CIP project number 6001-20OL. Recommended action for this afternoon would be Traffic and Mobility Commission support staff's recommendation to implement the pavement management program fiscal year 2021 payment overlay project capital improvement program CIP project number 6001-20OL. A little bit background on city's payment management program, PMP. The project is part of city's ongoing annual payment management program. PMP or payment management program is utilized to preserve, maintain, and rehabilitate streets in order to improve safety, enhance payment condition, and extend life of city's roadway infrastructures. The program annual budget is $4.5 million. So in general, if you want to list the payment management program objectives, the first one would be improved safety, also enhance rideability, cost-effective payment treatment, maintenance. As you probably can hear throughout the presentation, we are gonna refer to different treatment repair options, and each option have a window of basically opportunity that we can utilize that treatment cost effectively. If we miss that window of opportunity, we have to go to the next level treatment or repair or rehabilitation, which will be more expensive. So in order to be cost effective, it's very important to basically select the right treatment for the right street at the right time. So that's a key of PMP. Also increase fuel efficiency and environmental benefits, lower vehicle maintenance costs, increase tourism. With that comes economic development, and obviously higher standard of living for the residents of Carlsbad. So what are the treatment or repair options? What methods do we utilize to maintain our streets? From top to bottom, they are basically less significant, getting more significant, and obviously going down, it gets more expensive. So the first treatment that typically is utilized to preserve the roads, it's called crack or surface sealants. So basically we utilize some sort of preservation seal or crack sealers. Typically we apply this type of method sometimes 3 to 5 years after construction. So the pavement is still in very good condition. So we try to preserve what we have and minimize any oxidation of pavement or moisture damage by sealing the pavement. Going to the next one, obviously it's a little bit more expensive. A slurry seal, a seal doesn't add to the structural capacity of the pavement, but it has some fine aggregates in it. So typically that seal is applied somewhere around 7 to 10 years after construction, and that's considered basically another type of treatment to preserve what we have. So the third method would be hot mix or warm mix asphalt overlay, and that's considered basically minor rehabilitation. So this is in case of pavement structure still is sound. We have good base, sub-base layers, and we haven't seen any damages in the underlying layers, but the pavement is kind of old, oxidized, and cracked. Typically, this happens around somewhere between 15 to 18 years after construction, provided that we have done a slurry seal and basically preservation seal to maintain the integrity of the road. And this is basically what we are doing for some of the proposed locations. The fourth one would be basically more like major rehabilitation. This is in case of not only surface has been damaged, we have cracks that have gone through all the way through the surface layer, and we have some damages basically in the base layer. So in that case, we utilize cold impress recycling, which is basically reutilization of existing material in place. So what we do, there is a state-of-art equipment that we bring it in, and the machine kind of removes the surface and part of the base, adds emulsion, adds cements, and puts it back simultaneously and compacts it as a new base layer. And we typically can put it another 2 or 3 inches of hot mix asphalt or warm mix asphalt on top to make it basically a good sound pavement, which is what we are doing again for some of the selected projects, some of the locations selected in this project. And the last one is basically for some major potholes and patching that we can do. It typically are street people take care of potholes, but that would be in case of the pavement has some major issues such as fatigue cracking and block cracking that has caused potholes. So what are the selection criteria for basic the streets that we are going to resurface? How do we select these streets? The first thing we do, and this is part of our payment management program, every 5 to 6 years, we hire a consultant, and they utilize a state-of-art van to identify any type of distresses in the pavement, and they come up with some sort of quantification of pavement surface condition. They utilize a van that is equipped with mobile LiDAR for inventory purposes, 3D pavement imaging that can give us some indication of fatigue and rutting distresses, and also pavement profiler for determination of roughness. So as a result of that, we get basically a pavement condition index, PCI, for every road that they drive on, and that's based on basically their calculation and evaluation. There is some sort of human aspect to it too. It's not all computerized, especially when it comes to potholes and other distresses. So PSI is an index from 0 to 100. Typically, when the road is newly paved or constructed, we assign PCI by 100. So after we do these overlays, so we go to our payment management overlay software, and we assign PCI by 100. So obviously, the more in service the pavement it is, the lower the PCI it gets. So once we have the PCI from pavement surface condition assessment, we input all those data into our pavement management software that has some sort of prediction models. And these prediction models take into account several factors such as climate, traffic, local materials, pavement structure, and utilizing those factors, the software anticipates PCI throughout basically future years. Again, we do actual condition assessment every 5 years, but we can basically run model at any time and basically get from the model the present PCI. And also the model can give us some sort of recommended treatment option, whether it's going to be preservation seal, fog seal, steady seal, or overlay. The pavement software can propose those options. So based on what we get from software, we typically develop the initial list of candidates for overlay project. Then we take the following steps to further refine that initial list. The first thing we do, we coordinate with other CIP projects and also other agencies. For example, if we are anticipating another major CIP project that will cut into pavement, obviously we are not going to go ahead and spend millions of dollars to pave it and cut it in like 2-3 years. We typically have a utility coordination meeting. That's a quarterly meeting that we have with other utility agencies, And that's a good place for us to share our future projects. Also, the companies, the utility companies share us their projects. So that's a good place for coordination. We also coordinate with other agencies. An example of that would be, for example, City of Vista sewer project on Palomar Airport Road. So we were coordinated. We made sure we didn't spend any money because we knew they were coming and they were going to participate. Then we looked at the best treatment option and based off the cost effectiveness. And that's basically based on the benefit value. What is the best option that we can utilize to get the longest life from the road? And that would be maximizing value and life of a pavement network. And ultimately, once we have done all this stuff, we go back to the list and we apply our engineering evaluation and local judgment to refine annual project list. So like every other models, no model is perfect. So what the model is proposing is not necessarily the best option. Like I said, the model considers traffic, climate, and structural layers. And if the model has not been calibrated based on Carlsbad input, then obviously the recommendation from the model may not be 100% accurate. So we'll apply our engineering judgment to refine the annual project. With that, I turn it over to Mr. Elias, who can talk about this upcoming project.
Thank you, Hossein. So Hossein just went over the pavement management program as a whole and how we determine which streets to resurface. And I'll be talking about specifically about what we're going to be resurfacing as part of the next project. So this is the project location here. We have from El Camino Real, from Cannon Road to Faraday Avenue. And we have El Camino Real from Arenal Road to Levante Street. And we have Bataquitos Drive from Poinsettia Lane to Camino de las Ondas. So a little bit of a close-up of where these are. Here we have, again, El Camino Real. Please note the north arrow is pointing to the left, so you'd be going northbound from your right to your left. El Camino Real from Cannon Road to Faraday Avenue. Again, El Camino Real from Arenal Road to Levante Street. Again, please note the north arrow is pointing to the left, so you'd be going northbound if you were going to the left of the screen. And the third location would be on Bataquitos Drive from Poinsettia Lane to Camino de las Ondas. Again, you'd be going northbound if you were to go from the right to the left of the screen. So to highlight the mobility elements of the project, we're proposing to reduce the vehicle lanes on El Camino Real within the project limits from 12 feet in each direction to 11 feet in each direction. And essentially that would give us an extra 3 feet that we can add to the existing bike lane, which is a class 2 bike lane. And currently it's 8 feet wide. So we'd have an 8-foot bike lane with an added 3-foot striped buffer along El Camino Real within these project limits. And to further enhance the safety for bicyclists, we're proposing to also add dash green pavement markers, as we've talked about a little earlier in the meeting. This would be at the conflict zones of the intersections, or the vehicle to bike conflict zones close to the intersections. And finally, we would also be adding a high visibility or continental crosswalks as part of this project to replace the existing regular crosswalk, as you may call them, just the two dash lines. We'd add continental crosswalks. So just to show a graphic of what these would look like, here we have just a typical cross section of El Camino Real of what it looks like now. We have 12 feet in each direction, 12-foot lanes in each direction with an 8-foot bike lane. And this is, with the proposed improvements, this is what it would look like. We would reduce all the vehicle lanes to make them 11 feet. And with the remaining or the additional 3 feet that we gain, we would add a bike buffer to the bike lanes in each direction. And as we get closer to the intersections, we would add these dashed striped green pavement markers in the conflict zones again. And then the portion of the bike lane that's closest to the intersection, that would be marked with green paint also. And then we'd add the continental crosswalks as they're showing there on the left-hand side of the screen. Again, this is a schematic of what these improvements would look like. This is just a schematic from the MUTCD. But this is our plan to be adding at all intersections. After tonight's meeting, after the commission's feedback, we would finalize the project plans and specifications. And then we would go to City Council to approve those plans and specifications, and then we'd request authorization to go out to bid for competitive bidding for this project. And after the bids come in, we would go back to City Council and request that they would award the construction contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. And with that, Hossein, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, Matt. Like Imad mentioned, staff recommendation to City Council would be the City Council adopt the resolution to approve plans and specification and authorizing City Clerk to advertise for construction bids for the project. And just reminding everyone, the recommended action for this afternoon would be Traffic and Mobility Commission to support the staff's recommendation to implement the Pavement Management Program Fiscal Year 2021 Pavement Overlay Project, CIP project number 6001-20OL. And that concludes our presentation. We will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you so much both for the presentation. We're going to go in order to see what comments we have. Commissioner Hunter.
On Cannon to Faraday, if we're looking to expand that road and make some changes, I don't need the picture. The question is, why would we do, I don't know what the timing on expanding the road would be. But if we're going to do that in the next year or so, or do something there, wouldn't that conflict with the paving portion or the repaving portion?
That's a good question. I'm assuming you're referring to ACR widening between Jack Spar and Sunny Creek. Is that correct?
Yes, and then hopefully all the way down to Cannon, or restriping all the way to Cannon. But yes, at least from Jack Spar to Sunny Creek.
Absolutely. And depending on what happens tomorrow night and whether or not council expedites that project, CIP 6094, which will widen ECR between Jack Spar and Sunny Creek. So if council expedite that project, that means we'll be working on that project next year. So obviously we're gonna go ahead and reconsider some of the locations we are proposing here. But if that project for some reason doesn't get expedited, we're gonna move forward with this project. And that applies to also another part of this project, which is in La Costa area. Resurfacing the road doesn't necessarily mean if we widen the road, we are gonna rip out what we paved. So there are gonna be some minor basically damages to the pavement, but that's pretty standard, and with the construction method that can be minimized by just saw cutting the pavement and minimizing any damage to the area just paved. So that's basically our general answer, that we're gonna reconsider if that happens. But at the end of the day, we wanna make sure that the roads in urgent need of repair, they get the necessary repair, because they have, if we don't repair them, then we're gonna have some safety issues.
Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, Commissioner Perez.
No comments, just nice presentation.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pensier. Let me see, because I can't see him. There you go. Commissioner Pensier, do you have any questions?
Okay, yes, I do. Okay. I was trying to unmute and somebody muted me again. First of all, thank you for the the extra 3 feet on the bike lanes on El Camino Real. That's such a high-speed roadway. I think that'll be appreciated by everybody that rides there. The one thing that I would, and it's not for the people that repave this, but as soon as you make that thing 11 feet wide, there's going to be a lot of trash that's going to end up in the bike lane. So we should really look at the street sweeping project and the sequence or the timing of that. How frequently is that done? Because there will be a lot more stuff over by the curb once this is accomplished. Secondly, you showed the approach to the intersection, which is incredibly important as far as cyclist safety is concerned, because that's where most of the crashes occur. And you showed where there were right turn only lanes, and that the approach you're going to use there is excellent with the green paint and the dashes across the conflict zones. However, there are several intersections in that area. I think it's in the southernmost area where there are right turns are permitted, but there's no right turn only lane. In other words, the drivers just slow down and make a right turn across the dash part of the bike lane. Do you have a schematic of one of those so that it's easier to explain what I'm trying to get at here?
I definitely understand what you're saying. Can you see where my mouse is hovering right now?
Yes.
So if you're saying if there's no dedicated right turn lane here,
yeah,
what do we do for the bike lane?
Yes.
Right. So we would extend these dashed pavement markers all the way to the intersection.
Okay.
If I may clarify, Pete, you know, we have 200 feet of dashed bike lane as we approach intersection without right turn lanes, right?
Yes.
We'll be doing that, but we'll be adding the green, as you see kind of in this graphic, to those dashed lines so that you'll have a dashed green bike lane as you approach the intersection for all intersections that don't have a right turn only lane.
Okay. So the bike lane will remain against the curb?
Yes.
But it will be 11 feet wide?
Essentially, yes, because you'll have the buffer that will end, and we would take the striped green enhanced bike lane drop stripe all the way to the intersection, and it'll effectively be 11 feet.
Okay. All right.
We'll look at the details, and we'll likely carry the transition as Mr. Kim suggested. But yeah, it's a pretty common transition where we don't have the separate dedicated right-hand turn lane.
Yeah, the dedicated right turn lanes are easier to handle. The concern I have is when you use green paint, dash green paint, and there's no right turn only lane, a lot of drivers are going to make their right-hand turn from out in the travel lane. And that's an extreme hazard to cyclists. It's illegal for them to do so, but there are, just from my observations, I think that more than half of the drivers out there don't know that they're making an illegal right-hand turn when they don't merge into the bike lane once it becomes dashed. So
I understand what you're saying.
I'm skeptical of how that's going to work.
Yes, as a driver, I wouldn't know that is illegal for me to turn. I would do it out of the driver's lane.
Wow. Okay. And that's a huge issue for us, for cyclists. I don't know if anybody else wants to vote on that, but if you don't know it, Chair Gogan, I suspect that probably a lot of the other people here don't know that either. That is an absolutely illegal right-hand turn if you don't do it from the right-hand edge of the road. That's in California Vehicle Code.
Yeah, last time I took the driver's test, they didn't have the green paint. So
Right.
I'm sure a lot of people, it's the same. To me,
No.
as a driver, I would feel that I am protecting the cyclists because I'm letting their lane being free. But that's from my perspective, right? The cyclist perspective is different. So I will let staff consider our comments. They can make their expert opinion and changes as necessary.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that. I mean, the other option is to just treat them as we've always done and not add the green paint, just to have a dash bike lane, 11 feet wide, and would that encourage motorists to get in there? Would the green enhancement actually discourage motorists from entering that area to turn right? We haven't looked at it that way. We just thought that green would highlight the conflict area so that cars that chose to move to the right would be wary of any bicycles that would be in that area. But we'll take a look at that, Pete, and make a decision which way to go or not. I think there's benefits to both.
Okay. And there's another treatment I've seen recently, and perhaps that would be a way to handle this. It's down in the La Jolla area, and what they've done is they actually create a right turn only lane there, and then they use sharrows that start in the middle of the bike lane and then slowly move out towards the left-hand side. So it encourages the cyclists to stay there, but then the motorists yield to them. You know, there's signs there that say yield to cyclists, either pull in behind them. But the thing you don't want them to do is pass you and then don't realize how fast you're going and then right hook you. You know, this is a, you'll recall when we had the students from AVR Oaks come and talk to our committee, and they described the right hook as one of the most dangerous things that do occur for cyclists. And I agree, John, I'm not sure how this is going to work, but if the green paint discourages people from making turns from the right edge of the road, which they should, then it's counterproductive to safety. So yeah, I'd like to discuss this more. Perhaps maybe we can have a separate meeting on that with Nathan and
yeah, I'm sure you can even just have a side conversation with staff.
yes.
And if it needs to be brought to us, then we will address it. But right now, your comment is very useful from the cyclist perspective, and staff listens. So we're going to move on to Commissioner Linke. Do you have any comments?
Excuse me, Chair. May I interrupt and just address Commissioner Pensier's question with regards to the street sweeping, his comment? Just wanted to share that with additional street sweeping, Tom Frank now as Transportation Director is also in charge of that team. So just wanted to pass on that would be something that he would be taking a look at to make sure that the street is. I just wanted to pass that on. That is certainly noted, and we will take care of that.
Yes, we have all the key people in this meeting that make all the good decisions for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. Okay, so we're going to move on to Commissioner Linke. Do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, so I had submitted some written questions on Friday. Mr. Ajadeh mentioned that you have pavement condition index numbers, and I was curious what those pavement condition index numbers were for these 3 streets.
Yes, of course, we do have a PCI for those roads. You know, we can definitely give you those numbers. They are ranging differently, obviously, from mid 60s to high 60s. And I believe for Badeguizos, we have low 70s. But those numbers are based on the recent model runs. And these PCIs were based on a condition assessment that was done 5 years ago. In fact, we just posted RFP because we are due for the next pavement condition assessment. The last one was 5 years ago. So what we are getting from the model is really based on 5 years ago. And like I said, no model is perfect. Sometimes the model is basically giving us PCI like high 70s or mid 70s. But when we go there, obviously, we disagree with the model. So the numbers that we have as of today, for most of ECR area that included in this project, again, the average number, because we have PCI for each segment. The average would be from mid to high 60s. And for Badegidos, I believe is low 70s. But especially for Badegidos, we disagree with the model. And that part of it because Badegidos doesn't have really proper structural system, unlike ECR. So the model really over-predicted the PCI, but the pavement is in really poor condition. So.
Okay. You mentioned various methods. Which method is going to be used? Is this just an overlay, or is this the part where the method where you grind it up and reconstruct it from recycled material?
It varies. Obviously, we have done some investigation and we try to have a better understanding how crack or damage has progress in the pavement. So not getting into the details, but some cracks are top down, some cracks are bottom up, and there are other distresses that we need to fix. For some part of the ECR also, we have really low curb face because looks like for past 20 years, we have done multiple overlays and we have left really in some areas, maybe 2 inches of curb face. So for those areas, we need to actually lower the elevate of the pavement. But answering your question, for the areas that we have really deep cracks, let's say cracks 4 inches or 5 inches from surface, or cracks that we call it bottom up cracks, fatigue cracks, that start from the bottom of the HMA, initiates from the bottom of HMA layer and propagates to the surface. So for those cracks, in order to properly fix the pavement, we have to remove the entire damaged layer. And that would be sometimes 6 or 8 inches of pavement. And that would be very, very expensive. So what we have tried to do, basically take innovative approaches and basically instead of milling those 6 to 8 inches of asphalt and sending to HMA plant, we are trying to reutilize that material, rejuvenate it with emulsion and cement and put it back as a new base layer. And on top of that, up to now, the project is very sustainable and environmental friendly. We try to take it even further and top it with warm mix asphalt that utilizes polymer modified additive. That's the same material we used for La Costa recently that significantly adds to the life of pavement, the polymer modification. So the warm mix asphalt is a new technology that is produced and it's constructed at much lower temperature. So that would be in compliance with our climate action plan. It will generate a lot less green gases, and it would be safer for production crew, for paving crew, for our staff who's inspecting the job, and also for the community. So for the areas that the damages are beyond the 3 inches on surface, we are going to utilize cold in place recycling. But the areas that we don't need to go deeper than 3 inches, it would be just mid and fill.
Okay, and it's going to vary for each street, and you don't know what that is right now?
We do. We are in the process of finalizing. We are waiting for tomorrow's council decision to finalize a plan. Obviously, we are seeking your feedback for mobility aspect of it. But for a structural layer, we pretty much know what we are going to be doing. Our goal is basically picking the right approach, the most cost-effective approach that gives us a maximum life of the pavement.
Okay, so I'll just end with a comment. I'm in favor of obviously doing the pavement overlays when they're necessary and making the bicycle improvements when we can. But I've learned that the city has Transnet funds that are typically designated for projects that are improvement projects or capacity increasing projects. And historically, when I look back, the vast majority of our Transnet funds are being used for the pavement overlay program, which is to me more of a repair project. Now there's rules in it that if you do at least 1 inch of overlay, you can get an exemption, or you can use 30% of the Transnet funds for non-capacity projects like repairs. But I'm just wondering if one approach to funding projects, for example, the College Boulevard extension, which was the topic at our last meeting, would be to, instead of using Transnet funds for predominantly for repairs and other smaller projects, whether that could be reallocated. And it's probably outside of the domain of the Traffic Mobility Commission to do that. But just like that might be one approach that we could use to have more funds available for improvement projects rather than repair projects.
And that's a good comment. That's actually a very good comment. So, you know, it just happens that we are working on the 2020 RTIP update. And what we are doing, as I mentioned, for this program, we had $4.5 million a year. And that $4.5 million is coming from various funding sources, including SB1, Transnet, like you mentioned, and also non-jurisdictional funds, which is from trash haulers. So not entire 4.5 is coming from Transnet. And for the next 2 fiscal years, what we are proposing to do, and that's basically, like I said, in the process with the 2020 RTIP update, is we are trying to free Transnet for payment management program. So that means for next 2 years, we are not going to be using any even 1 cent from Transnet. Instead, again, in anticipation that council will expedite ECR widening between Jack Square and Sunny Creek, we are using that $1.5 million that we would have got from Transnet for payment management program and use it for that project. So we are basically bringing 6094 ECR widening into RTIP from 2025 to 2030, which is currently it is to next fiscal year. So to your point, for next 2 years, we are proposing not using anything from Transnet. We have a surplus from trash haulers in the account. So we are trying to use that one for next 2 years. But after 2 years, then we would basically empty our surplus from trash haulers. Then we can go back to at least portionally to Transnet. And with Transnet, every 2 years, we have an opportunity to reallocate money, reprogram entire program. So we always have that opportunity to reallocate money with Transnet funds.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just saw that tens of millions of Transnet funds have been used for pavement overlays for many years, and it'd be nice to have had access to that money. So I appreciate that. I'll keep in mind. Thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in as well that one of the things, as Mr. Ajide had mentioned, is the availability of the SB1 funds, which is relatively new. And so having that influx of additional funds provides us an opportunity to review the program holistically. And as you were suggesting, Commissioner Linke, is really seeing what fits and what categories so that we can make sure that we use the funds that we can get as best as we can.
Okay, I appreciate that. And one quick final comment, just to educate the rest of the commissioners, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but the advantage then is that because the pavement overlays are repair projects rather than capital improvement projects, they are not subject to that Proposition H $1 million limit. So if we had $4 million we wanted to spend on pavement overlay, we wouldn't have to have a vote of the people. We could take that out of the general fund or use the other funds that staff has discussed. And then the Transnet funds and others more specialized funding sources could be used to fund improvement projects without requiring a Proposition H vote.
Correct.
Yes, the Prop H is basically exempting the repair and refurbishment projects. And also RTIP or Regional Transportation Improvement Program has a cap of 30% for maintenance roads. So cities cannot use the entire transnet to do maintenance. There is a 30% cap for that funds. The remaining 70% must be used for basically capacity increasing projects.
Right, but the city is using that 70% for pavement overlay as well, because if you grind down at least an inch, then Sanday allows you to use that 70% too. So that's why I think a huge amount of it has been used on pavement overlays. The 1 inch versus not 1 inch. That's why I was asking those questions.
Yeah, just a minor correction. We are not actually even close to that 30% that we are allowed to use. We are using, like I said, $1.5 million, which is a smaller fraction of our entire balance. So, but I get your point. That's correct.
Yeah, I was looking back at previous years that were budgeted for a lot more than that.
Chair Gokin, you're muted, Chair Gokin.
Sorry. I was saying that to Commissioner Linke that most of the staff is new or newer to the city. So whatever it was budgeted a few years ago was different personnel and different staff. But I have a good feeling that from now on, we're gonna make this city really beautiful with really good funds and bicycle lanes and everything that we can work together to make that happen. And I'm gonna also make a comment that after we vote on this, we will hopefully someone make a motion to take a 5-minute break, because I know after 2 hours that some of us are a little antsy to move. So I'm gonna move on, just so you know, we're gonna take a break and after we vote on it. But I'm gonna have Commissioner Fowler, do you have any comments or questions?
Well, we're all anxious for the break, I suppose, but I do have a question for Pete. I don't get the trash thing, and maybe you can text me on on the chat here as to why widening the bike lanes creates more trash in the bike lanes, or whatever the point you were making. I didn't get that. That's all.
Okay, so I'm gonna let Commissioner Pensier inform you on that. And if it's something that you feel the rest of us needs to know, please let us know at that time. In time consideration, I'm gonna move on to Vice Chair Johnson. Do you have any comments?
No, I think everybody covered things.
Okay. My only comment is and refer to different methods. I know that about a couple of years ago, there was, I believe it was crack and surface sealant around north side of the city. That's where I live. And I'm not going to go into the education of how the process or how this method is happening. But what I've noticed is that the contractor was just literally painting the roads that were cracked with a lot of vegetation growing through the cracks. Just literally just painting over it without sealing any cracks or removing any vegetation. And also what I've observe is that the vegetation, it's actually, when you paint over it with this sealant, it's actually flourishing even better. So then we had an even better vegetation growing through those cracks. So I was kind of taken aback that we didn't have more quality control or quality assurance, and that money was just spent just like that. I mean, it looks beautiful, it's all black, but the cracks were not covered or removed to the vegetation. So whatever methods the engineers find appropriate, if it's any way that we make sure the contractor actually get the money worth, or the city gets the money worth from the contractor. So with that said, do I have a motion for this item?
I'll make a motion. We support staff's recommendation to implement the pavement management program fiscal year 2021 pavement overlay project capital improvement program CIP project number 6001-20. Is that an O or an L? I mean,
OL.
OL. Yes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, please note that Commissioner Hunter made the motion to support staff's recommendation to pavement management program for fiscal year 2021 pavement overlay project capital improvement program, project number 6001-20OL, with Commissioner Pensier seconding. Can we go for a vote? Ellie, are you still on?
Yes, I am. Sorry about that.
Nice picture there. I get a little scared.
Yes, I know. So am I. But
I actually recommend that we somehow shorten up the project name also sometime down the road. But,
okay, let's go for a vote. Commissioner Perez,
Yay.
Commissioner Linky,
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Pensiers,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Vice Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Chair Goken.
Yes, please note it passed unanimously.